Well, okay. It has been 4 days since the release of Sunbreak, and I have finally completed the storyline for the DLC, and it has been quite a journey. Obviously, I've had a ton of fun going through the game and what it has to offer, and there is just loads of topics I want to talk about. But for right now, I'm gonna go straight to the end of the DLC and go through with you all the storyline's final boss fight. In this video, I will briefly run down what you will expect from the fight itself, as well as some key points in how to go through the urgent quest more easily without any problems. Now, if you are watching this and you still haven't reached the final section for the DLC, then I suggest you stop watching this video, because obviously massive spoilers are about to be dropped. Now, for story-wise, Geismar Gorm, or Geismar for short, is kept well hidden away from the player from the start all the way to his introduction. The loading screen itself progresses from the left with all the starting monsters, and throughout your gameplay, it slowly progresses all the way to the right, showing more powerful monsters and then Geismar himself. During the storyline, you'll only know of this guy through myths and stories that the NPCs know of, completely shrouding this guy's existence, but he is an Elder Dragon that's been gathering life force from the Kuros whilst hiding under the Citadel. Lore-wise, this thing is supposedly a rival to the Malzeno, with whom has kept Geismar at bay from absorbing enough life force to come out of the abyss, and unfortunately once you've killed the Malzeno, it's discovered that Geismar Gorm is the true host to the Kuros, even sharing a symbiotic relationship with the Moths throughout the centuries. And you have now given this freak of nature a perfect opportunity to resurface out of the depths. Now, Geismar, for starters, is a massive motherfucker. I was genuinely shocked at how immense this guy is. I have went out of my way to spoil myself on this guy 2 weeks ago when the leaks of him had surfaced, and I thought to myself that he looks quite reminiscent of the Narwhal in the base game, with just the shape of his body, so I didn't really think he would be much different. But holy mother of god, I was in for a shock. Genuinely, the only other monster that comes to my mind when I fought Geismar is the bloody Gen Moran, just by the size alone. Going by appearances, this guy is unlike anything I've ever seen in Rise. His mouth reminds me of the graboids from the movie Tremors, just looking at it. He's got two massive forearms in the same vein as the Gormagala, with two smaller arms in between them. And lastly, this thing is peppered with red crystals on his back. These are actually the Koromoths that you'd find from the Malzeno that are now crystallized within Geismar, pretty much showing his age, and the fact that he's been kept hidden centuries while these Kuros are giving him the life force. Geismar's fight has two phases, with each phase changing his look as the fight progresses. First phase, Geismar will start with the crystals on his back, and in the second phase he begins to soften up and flare up. And in the last moments of the second phase, this guy is literally covered with fire and blood. The Kuros are all flaring up on his back, and this dude is just glowing with blood around his body. When I first saw this dude, I wasn't really too impressed from the images alone. It really didn't make it seem convincing that this is the big bad Elder Dragon for the DLC. But holy shit, was I proven wrong. It's one of those fights where you have to experience it firsthand. From this guy's first cutscene alone, you are made to feel as though it's not even considered an Elder Dragon, but instead a genuine demon crawling out of the depths of hell. Now, we have got the three lords who have taken the inspiration of Dracula, a werewolf, and a Frankenstein's monster, but this thing genuinely takes the inspiration of the fucking devil. His nickname is literally the Abyssal Archdemon, so his motif isn't necessarily a secret to the player. Now, onto the fight itself. I won't go over too much on all of the attacks that he does or any sort of intricate setup to go into the fight, because, surprisingly, the battle against Geismar is actually one of the more straightforward final boss battles you will experience. All you need is a decent dragon weapon, a shit ton of defense, preferably over 620 at the very least, and any sort of healing or evasive skills to help you at least survive. Geisma. The fight itself is quite linear, aside from the turret sections that you'll need to use for when Geisma starts climbing up. Fiorayne will be by your side when you first fight this thing, so the fight will be a lot more straightforward because she does give you important cues during the fight. Specifically, when this thing starts climbing to eat the Kuros on the wall, she will tell you to focus on his back when you're on the turret. And even if you fail to put him down, she will tell you to move the hell out and get away just as he's about to do his big blood laser. During the first phase, his crystals act as an armor, so the best way to deal damage to him is on his head and forearms. Obviously his head will be more of a risky target, so it's better to stay by the side of his forearms and deal damage there. The one big attack mentioned earlier is in the second phase of the fight. Now this is utterly insane. Once he's eaten up all the Kuros on the wall, he will start spewing glowing life force out of his back. And then a massive lens flare comes out of his mouth and he just vomits what's essentially blood around the map until it causes what I can only assume is the biggest explosion you'll ever see in Rise. If you have a decent amount of defense and you do get hit before the big explosion, you can wirefall away, and as long as you're away from the glowing part of the arena, you're good. In my opinion, this is by far the better approach when dealing with a final boss. A sort of slow battle of attrition where you have to wear down Geisma throughout the fight, and the one scripted sequence out of the whole fight is fairly easy to deal with, as long as you pay attention. So that is Geisma Gorm. In my opinion, this is one of the most insane experiences I've ever had while playing Rise. In a sense, where the entire spectacle and atmosphere of the fight mixes in with simplicity in how you go about fighting Geisma Gorm. If we quickly compare this with the fight with the All-Mother, a sizable emphasis on her fight is with the platforming and the use of placements that spawn throughout the quest. Using these platforms, you get away from her attacks as well as dealing maximum damage to her. Now if you look back to Geisma, literally what's happened here is that the devs have looked through the fight with the All-Mother, crumpled it into a ball, threw that shit out the window and went, fuck the platforms and openings, you have to survive. And generally that is what I love about this fight. You only ever use the turrets a handful of times, but other than that you are on the ground. You have no platforms or floating rocks whatsoever to avoid him, so you have to pay attention. In short, I absolutely love it. I mainly use the dual blades and I love the demon flight, so flying through this thing whilst blood and glowing lava is literally coming out of the sky is an utter treat. Plus, it is rather refreshing to have a massive monster in the franchise actually be mobile and engaging whilst not being too heavily reliant on the scripted events. Beautifully horrific, just hard enough for it to be fair, and overall just an insane experience. But in any case, what do you think of the fight? What do you think of Geisma Gorm as the final boss monster? Please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and I shall see you later.